Hi, this is Vic Highland. I had somebody ask me to do something about the guitar exams, and one of the sections near the end of the electric guitar exams to do with the spoken tests. Now, the spoken tests and the oral tests in the electric guitar exams aren't actually worth a massive amount of marks, but they tend to be icing on the cake. You know, if you're, it makes a difference between really you getting a pass and a merit, or a merit and a distinction. So they also seem to be something that sticks very much in the mind of people because they tend to be near the end of the exam. So with the spoken tests, with the electric guitar grades, the spoken tests involve knowing the fretboard for a lot of the earlier grades, and parts of the guitar, etc. as well. So one of the elements to remember, if you're doing the preliminary grade, the notes that are being asked are to do with the scales themselves. So you've got a couple of ways of doing this. Either as you learn the scales, you learn the notes. But probably the easiest way is that you need to know the open strings of the guitar, which you can use a little mnemonic, which is elephants and donkeys grow big ears. So coming from the bass strings up to the thinnest strings, the thickest string is the elephant, so that's E, fifth string A, D, G, B, E. And then the next thing is that you're probably only going to be asked the natural notes of the guitar for the preliminary. So that's the A's and the B's and the C's, etc., but not the flats and the sharps. And because of that, it might be a good idea just to bear this in mind, that the first and second frets of any of the strings will be the next letter of the musical alphabet. So in other words, the first fret on the B string will be C, the second fret on the D string will be E. And of course, if you do the G on the G string itself, the next letter of the musical alphabet is A, because obviously it goes back to A. Then at the notes at the third fret will be two letters on. So the third fret of the B string would be a D, the third fret of the A string would be a C. Okay? So that helps with the preliminary grade. Then from the grade 1 onwards, you need to start learning the fretboard to include sharps and flats. Now, the easiest thing to remember is that generally between two letters, two of the white notes, if you like, the natural notes, you will have a black note. And there's only two pairs of white notes that don't have a black note in between, so in other words, not a sharp or a flat. And that's the B to the C and the E to the F. Now, to remember this on the guitar, of course, your two thinnest strings is a B and an E. So the second string going up to the first fret is just one, going from the B to C is just up one fret, and the same on the E string. Now, of course, that will affect wherever you play a B and a C and an E and an F, but it's a good memory jogger. So apart from that, you're always going up two frets. And it's probably easier to work out what the notes are, what the white notes are, and not so much the sharps and flats. So when you're working it out, just go like you're doing the B string, for instance. B is open, C is at the first fret, D at the third, E at the fifth, and then obviously E to F, so you go up to the F at the sixth and so on, instead of working out every single chromatic note, because it takes you forever. So that's a good way, and I've always found that writing out the fretboard with all the white notes, the natural notes, is a really good idea. And then once you get good at going up one string, then do it going backwards from the 12th fret and see if you can work it out. And then when you've got that sorted out, work out what all the notes are at the 3rd fret, and then what all the notes are at the 5th. Now there are some, in the back of the RGT books, there are little grids with all the notes written in, but they look complicated because they include all the sharps and flats. So, as I say, I would work it that way. So that's a little bit about the fretboard. With regard to the parts of the guitar and some of the questions in grade 1, the parts of the guitar, obviously there's a little chart in the back, so things like the machine heads and the tuning pegs, the sound hole if you're playing on an acoustic, the pickups, the pickup selector, all those things are marked in. But at grade 1 there are certain other questions about fret buzz, about how to make sure that you press the notes directly behind the fret so they don't create fret buzz, and use the tip of your finger, and then things like what's the meaning of the term action on the guitar, which of course is reference to the height of the strings, whether you've got a high action or a low action, and how that affects the ease of playing. And then things like the little white piece of plastic at the top of the guitar, which is the nut. Let's see if I've got a guitar here. There's an old Strat of mine. So obviously that is the nut. And then the fret markers, which are minor snowflakes and things, obviously mostly on the odd numbers. Occasionally you'll get, obviously at the fret excuse me, at the 12th fret you get double dots, and that's obviously an even fret, but that's where everything starts again. Alright, so just do that and see how you get on, and if there's anything else you want to suggest, then I'll answer that on another blog.